again to the Governor's Workforce Summit in 2022, where we're really engaging in such a rich discussion. Even off the air, you know, the panelists here were sharing their level of expertise, and we are hoping that the listening and viewing audience are able to partake and just enjoy all this wealth of knowledge and information and really emphasize the importance of the topic that we're getting ready to engage in, which is called Training and Upscaling Virgin Islanders Now and Into the Future. I would like to introduce the panelists. And again, my name is Sarah Burke, and I am the moderator for this particular panel discussion. And I'm excited because even off the air, we were just going. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Rudy Rancine, who is the Vice President of Equus Workforce. So please give them a round of applause. Equus Workforce Solutions. And of course, this lady and I keep saying we're like attached at the hip. She's my sister from another mother, but you know, we haven't figured it out. But hey, here it is, the one and only Dr. Susan McGrath of the UVI Cell. And certainly this dynamic woman, I had the opportunity of collaborating with to put this workforce summit together. I'm speaking no other than of Ms. Nisha R. Christian Hendrickson, who is the Assistant Commissioner and Legal Counsel of the Virgin Islands Department of Labor. Last but certainly not least at all, one of our very own homegrown grassroots. I am making reference to Mr. Mario Francis, who is the proud principal of the Raphael O. Whitley Skills Center right here on the island of St. Thomas. And thank you, panelists, for coming and taking the time out and sharing your wealth of information and level of expertise with the viewing audience. We all know the importance of upscaling. It is giving people new skills to improve their existing jobs. Reskilling, as we all know it, is giving people new skills to succeed at a new job. Although there are differences between the two, in practice, they pretty much overlap a lot of times, right? Half of us, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, will need to reskill in the next 5 years as the double disruption of the economic impacts and the increase in automation transformation takes hold of our jobs. From your perspective, and again, we would like to set the platform that there is really no sequencing in who is going to answer the question. This is a discussion amongst the experts in our community, and at any given time you can jump in. Please feel free to do so. My first question would be, what are the benefits of reskilling or upskilling for managers, supervisors, and employees? What are the benefits of reskilling or upskilling for managers, supervisors, and employees? Go ahead, take it away, Rudy.
So I think one of the main benefits for managers, supervisors of upskilling is just the opportunity to grow, right? So the opportunity to make more money, create more opportunity, grow within their careers. Not only does it put more money in their pockets and provide additional stability, but it also creates an opportunity for someone that may be on their team to grow into their role as well. So not only does it create an opportunity for the individual, but it also creates opportunities for those on your team to also grow.
That's great.
Good afternoon again. I agree with Mr. Rancine. One of the other things that upskilling and reskilling helps is resiliency.
Yes.
So one of the things we're trying to do in the Virgin Islands is to really make sure that the next disaster, the next pandemic, the next hurricane, we have people who are here on the ground, well-trained to meet whatever comes our way. So if you are upskilled or you are reskilled, you have more tools in your personal toolbox, and the organization or the company you work with also has those tools to be able to respond. And that's one of the things that's really important to us.
It is critical, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Also, the benefits for upskilling from the managerial point of view is you have employees that you can now retain because they're not leaving looking for greener grass on the other side. So as Rudy stated, you now created a position for someone in-house, and then you have someone in-house who have escalated to another position. So there you have higher retention. And when you have higher retention, you build better capacity because you're not constantly having to bring new talent in
Yes.
and train new talent. And so that's my perspective.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so
And
much,
good
Mr.
afternoon, and
Francis.
I can
Good
certainly
afternoon.
add to what you just said, Principal Francis. As an employee, when you're in a job and there's no professional development opportunities, you feel, what am I doing here? What's my career path? What's going on? But when your employer is actively wanting to invest in you, that's going to really make you feel dedicated to that job. You feel invested in. It's going to really raise your morale. So we know that, like you said, you've got good morale. You're happy to be in your place of employment. It's going to make you then have higher levels of customer service. So then we're going to be having happy customers. So the payoff is definitely there for employers to make that investment, upskilling, and then it's we as employees we feel invested in. We're advancing our professional career.
So, Dr. McGrath, you would say that it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Which brings me to the next question, panelists. What are the top skills that employers will be looking for in the years ahead? I mean, everything is moving on so quickly, and the skills need to match the demands of the jobs. What are some of those top skills? Let's share.
So I'll begin. Something I mentioned yesterday, but I think it's worth repeating, is in general, you're looking for 3 great qualities in an employee. You want them to be hungry, which means that they have a desire to come to work and do a good job without necessarily pushing upon the manager or supervisor. You want them to be humble. So it's not going to always be that they shine greater than everybody else. You're not going to always get the recognition. And you want them to be smart. I don't mean intellectually smart. I mean smart with people. Are you responsive? Do you know when to pull back, when to go forward? So if you have those 3 skills, you're hiring for those 3 skills, you're going to be ahead of the game. But also, you want to make sure that there are people on your team that can work with others, that have the soft skills that you were mentioning. One of the biggest things that we hear as a challenge in the territory is that people say that people have attitudes. And we know it's not true because we know when we get on that plane and we go someplace else, we check those attitudes. So we know it's possible. So we just have to make sure that we balance the actual talent with these other wraparound services and wraparound skills that we have and just kind of make people bloom.
I love that. Yes, Mr. Francis.
And to add to that, well, we can't talk about the soft skills piece enough.
Yes.
Because the soft skills is basically your people skills. And our culture can come off as we're rude. It can. It can. I mean, it can. But sometimes when you just get to know that person and you realize that they're carrying some baggage, it's a whole different scenario. They just haven't learned how to manage what's going on inside. No one taught them. They don't teach that in school. A lot of parents don't teach you how to handle it. Grow up, be a man, be a woman, handle it. So they just go out and they practice what they see. So when you now reel them in and say, listen, look at yourself and look at what you're doing. And how we do it is we do scenarios, vignettes. And we give them an opportunity. Here are 5 choices. How would you respond to that? And that's one of the assessments that we do for all of our new students. And a lot of time, they're brutally honest. And they say, meaning now with them, you know. If they come to me with this, they better be. And I says, wrong. I said, but listen, what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to manage it. And the easiest one we tell them is when you see someone is coming with that kind of attitude. Before you respond, not even count to 10, just count to 3. Because what you are doing is you're pulling away from their behavior. It's giving you an opportunity now to use your energy to fill the room as opposed to matching that person's negative energy. So we really delve deep in the soft skill piece. And also technology. I read one of the reports from WIOR 2014. A hard read, a big document, but a lot of good meaty stuff about what's happening in the territory post-hurricane, what happened pre-hurricane, and where some of the skills in the U.S. Virgin Islands lie. And a lot of what they're saying is that projection out, the 3 highest areas that folks are going to need to be able to reskill or upskill is 1, the technology, administrative piece, and administrative piece is hidden in soft skills. Because if you are a leader, that's a good attribute to have as soft skills. And then the other one is the trades. And so in upskilling or reskilling, those are some of the areas that folks need to start looking at, because the trades are not going to go away with artificial intelligence or automotive. The skills are going to always be, you have to be there. Now the tools that you use will evolve, but those skills, you're still going to need to know how to lay pipe, how to, well, we're not banging nails anymore, we're shooting them now, and you're gonna have to know how to get the lights on. Alrighty?
Thank you so much, Educator Francis.
And just to add to the conversation on this topic, Sierra, you mentioned the pace of change and how rapidly things are moving.
Yeah.
The one thing you can count on is change. And the only people that like change are wet babies. Mm-hmm. So, nobody likes change. So you look at your staff when you're introducing a change. You're looking for flexibility, agility. People come and go from their job positions. Now you have to take on their workload. Oh my God, what are you going to do? How gracefully can you take on that new work? How can you take on those new challenges? How can you pivot? But flexibility, adaptability, to me, that's what I'm looking for with staff.
Those are some essential skills for sure.
If I can add, so having been a hiring manager, still a hiring manager, and a former recruiter, I think there are 6 core competencies that are transferable in any industry. Those 6 core competencies are customer service orientation, sales orientation, or the ability to persuade, flexibility, as Dr. McGrath mentioned, work ethic, leadership, and communication.
Absolutely.
Right? And just to add to your point, Dr. McGrath, and I know we want to move on, so I'm going to be
It's okay,
brief,
we got
but
this.
when it comes to flexibility, there's an equation, there's a mathematical equation that I like to share with my team and that applies specifically to flexibility. It's E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. So in life, we don't have total control over the events that occur. Sometimes good things happen, sometimes bad things happen. We don't have as much control over the event. What we have 100% control over is the response, the R, all right? So if you have a negative number and you add a negative number, you get a negative number. If you add a negative number and you have a positive number, if the positive number is large enough, you have a positive outcome. So if your response to a negative outcome is positive enough, if you can respond to it in a way that can turn that event into a positive outcome, you have control. So I think that's something when it comes to flexibility, when we're looking for employees, individuals to bring on board, the ability to adapt and be flexible and to multitask and to deal with unexpected events is a huge quality that as individuals looking for work are trying to develop, that's something that they want to try to focus on developing, and that's a skill to develop.
I really love that formula, Mr. Francis. I think we need to token that. What do you say, right? And just to start ingraining that into our students and into the youth of the Virgin Islands, and even to a lot of our employees that are really going through this rescaling and all the things that we're talking about. So that was a really rich discussion. Let's moving forward. Greater adaptation of technology will mean in-demand skills across job change over the next 5 years, and skill gaps will continue to be high. For those workers who stay in their roles, the share of core skills will change. Of course, by 2025, it's considered 40%, and 50% of all employees will need reskilling. From your perspective, how can we help individuals in the Virgin Islands to upskill or reskill for this digital transformation? Taking into consideration what's happening right now.
I'll start, and I know the panel can add to it, but with this digital transformation, it's important that Virgin Islanders have access to technology, and the assumption can't be that everyone has access to a computer and everyone knows how to use a computer. So at our American Job Center, one of the things that our team does is we make it our point to ensure that our job seekers that come into the center know how to use a computer. We provide them access to LinkedIn Learning. We have access to over 16,000 courses to help enhance the skills of job seekers. But making sure that there's access to computers, and also making sure that when you give a job seeker access to a computer, they know what they're doing. So we make sure we spend some time with them so that they can familiarize themselves with the technology.
That's great. Thank you.
To add to that, we also have Grow with Google as one of the partners that we have that provides certificates. We're also partner with ICF, the Skills for Today program, so people can be able to either do NCCR competencies to add to what they're doing. Going back to your trades, we have project management, we have grants management. There's a lot of different services. We often say to the Department of Labor, we're the best kept secret because there's so many ways that you can add to your portfolio. In addition to that, we have people who can sit with you. If you have challenges with computer literacy,
Yes.
there's ways that we can partner with you. And sometimes we take for granted some of the skills we have in terms of the young people. Really, really linking people who, they've grown up with this technology. I mean, if you ask a Gen Z person what's a fax machine, they look at you like you're crazy because they did not grow up with it. So really just being able to link people together and to really make sure that they understand what services are really available to them right here in the territory.
That's great.
I'm just going to reiterate availability, and also that you have the support that they need, because we have a computer application course that we run at the Skill Center, and it's one of our lowest. The cost is the lowest, Department of Labor pays for it, but the enrollment is the lowest.
Wow.
Because a lot of people who don't know are just intimidated by the thought. A lot of people, they can go on social media and do everything, TikTok. But when it comes to actually simple skills sometimes, dragging and dropping, highlighting, a lot of them, which key do I press? How do I do it? And so what we try to do with everyone that comes through our door with the technology is we try to make certain that we are patient with them. Sometimes we have seniors. Sometimes we have students who are fresh out of college, high school, trying to get their upskill in computer technology, but they still don't have some of the basic skills. And so what I think we need to do a better job at is putting it out there.
Yeah.
Although we have it, put it out there. You said best kept secret at the Department of Labor. Sometimes I think that's what happened with us as well. We do some advertisement. We don't do half as much as we could be doing, and just highlight. Even if it means now with the new governor's initiative that we're talking about to have the Raphael Wheatley Skills Center tuition being paid for by the government as opposed to them having to pay, to let them know, come for free courses. We can do this. Here's what we're going to do. But I think we just need to be more deliberate in getting it out there, because sometimes we say we have it, the field of dreams. If we build it, they will come. But we cannot expect for that to happen.
So messaging is important. Thank you so much, Mr. Francis.
And I agree with all the points that have been shared. I would just say as a individual, just stay at the forefront of your field. So go on TikTok, follow those content creators that have those careers, purposeful TikTok, that have those careers that you want to have. What are the technology skills that they're using? What are they reading? What content are they accessing so they can continue to stay at the forefront? Technology is going to be constantly changing. The tools that people are using are constantly going to be changing. So connect with professional organizations, those national organizations. You're interested in culinary? Make sure you connect with the American Culinary Federation on Facebook. Follow them. What are the latest advancements in the field? What technologies are people using? So just stay at the forefront. Stay connected. And then, of course, through UVI-CEL, we also offer our computing classes. We also offer a computing class for seniors. We also work closely with the Bureau of Corrections, and we have a reentry program. We found a lot of times people who are incarcerated, if they've been there for a long time, they haven't been using their computer regularly. Right. So even more so, those individuals need additional attention and support, and we're able to work with Department of Labor and with EQUIS to get those skills.
I'm sure that we all can agree this is an excellent exchange of ideas and topics that we're discussing, and we're hoping that it's received in the way that it is intended to be delivered. With that being said, I would like to pose the next question. Sometimes we do make mistakes along the way, right? And from your perspective, How can we help individuals limit their mistakes when upskilling and reskilling? We all been there, and you are the experts on this topic. So I'm coming to you. What are some of the hiccups and mistakes that we do make along the way? Because growing entails making mistakes, right?
Well,
So how do we deal with that?
I don't think it's so much about not being able to make a mistake, because I think we learn so much more from our failures than our mistakes.
Absolutely.
When you fail at something, you remember it. You remember it, and you don't want to experience that pain again. And sometimes what people, we talked a lot about this yesterday, is that, you know, people see people where they are now, and they think they just arrived like this. They don't remember, or we don't discuss a lot of times all the things that we didn't do correctly that brought us to this point. So sometimes it is the failure that gets you to the right place. Because if I took, for example, I realized I don't really like contracts that much. As an attorney, I don't really care for them. It doesn't mean I can't do them. If I have to, I will. But if I don't know, because I haven't had to do a lot of contracts, I don't like that, then I'm going to be miserable. So
Right.
sometimes you have to fail at something to be able to really refine where you really want to go. And I think as we're upskilling people, test them out. Let them learn how to do a skill. If they don't do it well, focus their energies in a different direction. But I think failure is a part of the process.
Great response. I love that.
I think one of the common stumbling blocks that job seekers encounter is, there's actually two I see. It is seeking out training or upskilling in a field that is not in demand, and then realizing after the fact that, man, I got this and I can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And then the second is doing something, getting skills or upskills in something that you're not interested in, as Nisha mentioned, right? So if you don't like contracts, you go after and get training so that you can review contracts. When you get there, you're going to be like, man, I don't want to do this anymore, and it's not sustainable, right? So, you know, I keep giving shameless plugs to the American Job Center, but I think one of the things that we do is we do an assessment with the job seekers that come in to make sure that we assess what their interests are. And then once we have an idea of what their interests are, we can help guide them to the trainings that are in demand, but also meet their level of interest so that they don't make those mistakes that, you know, are oftentimes that you can recover from them, but it takes a little longer. So I think that's my recommendation.
A little longer and a lot of money sometimes.
Well, if I may add, Rudy stated.
That's my middle name, so you're getting close.
Already, as he stated, we do likely the same thing. We get our students an inventory. Even though they says, oh, I want to do LPN. We'd have students come in wanting to do LPN, but like I heard someone told a story earlier that she wanted to be a nurse until she got ill and went into the hospital and saw blood and everything else. She was like, whoa. You know, so what we do is, one, we tell students, don't pursue somebody else's passion. We also tell parents, don't try to live your life through your child vicariously. I wanted to play a saxophone. I didn't get the opportunity. When my son was in the band, and he said I said, play the alto sax. And I did that so I could have that experience through him vicariously. And so I had to take one of my pills and say, don't do that to your children. Find out what they want to do and try to support them in there. When you do the career inventory, if they say they want to do X and thus, and the career inventory came out based on their responses, that you're not going to do so good at that, then you can steer them in that direction. But I always try to tell folks, pursue your passion. If you are pursuing your passion, you are going to have a fun time. This is my 43rd year as an educator.
Wow.
This is my passion.
Congrats.
And I can go home any single day. But because I still feel like I have something to offer, people are still coming and picking my brains, my contemporary, young people. And until I feel like I can no longer deliver, then I'm going to do this for as long as I can because it's my passion. But if I didn't have a passion for it, I'd say, you know what? When upper management starts getting up my nerves, I'm done with this. Or when things don't go my way. Because a lot of times, they see it as it's not going your way. But the way that I'm looking at is a way that I know 10 years from now, we'll have a cohort of individuals who can run this community when we could no longer run it.
Right.
All righty?
So wait, don't give her the mic yet, because 43 years, that's a long time, right? And especially in the field of education, which changes all the time. That meant, Mr. Francis, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've had a lot of upscaling, road drilling, all kind of stuff going on.
Upskilling, rebranding, you name it. Because you know what? I want to stay relevant for the young population.
Yes.
I can't go talking about, and even using the lingo.
Yes.
I can't go talking about some of the stuff that my grandmother shared with me, her vocabulary. So all I do is I listen to their vocabulary and I give them the same content in their vocabulary. I had to learn that. I had to listen to them to learn what the vernacular of the street is, you know? So, because if you don't, you're going to be giving them the best message. It's going to go in one ear and out the next.
Facts.
So I don't have 43 years of one experience. I have 43 years of experience after experience after experience. As soon as I get stale, I said, no, can't do this, gotta go back, gotta see what the trends are, and I'm always looking to see what's coming down the pike globally.
So in other words, we got to follow Principal
We
Francis'
gotta
TikTok.
we gotta follow him.
Follow
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
TikTok page.
Yes, and just to touch on the employer perspective with mistakes with upskilling. So if I decide to spend the people's money, invest in staff, send you to training, you gave an example with project management, the mistake would be, before I send you to training, what do I expect to see after training? And then the follow-up. Are you applying what you learned? Are you using those skills? Are you using those dashboard tools? Are you using those Excel spreadsheets? Show me. Show me how you're applying them. Let me help to guide you and support you and make sure you are doing that. Because if you're not, it's a waste of money. So many of us have been to classes. That was great. Put that binder on the shelf. You never open it ever again. Don't let that happen to you as an employer. Make sure you are following up, making sure those skills are being applied.
I agree.
And to the same point, having evaluations, and even if your office doesn't do it, or your organization doesn't do it, evaluate yourself. Am I doing a good job? Did I learn the skill that they sent me to learn?
Yes.
Have I mastered the information? So you really can't, it's not always going to be an outside. It has to come, some of it from internal push about where you want to go next, and that goes right back into the upskilling and reskilling. Did I learn the competency? Did I achieve the goal that I set out to achieve in the beginning? And if I didn't, maybe I don't like this so much. Maybe I'm not so good at it. Maybe I need to go back to the table and speak to my employer and say, maybe I didn't quite grasp it, or I don't really like it. Can I learn something else?
Awesome, 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 awesome. All right, so one of the latest trends is looking at equity and how equity plays a major role in delivering of service across the world. How can we minimize social inequity when upskilling? Because remember, a lot of times the digital divides, right? And if we're saying we want to make sure that everyone has an even playing field, the issue of inequity and equity plays a very vital role. So let's talk about that a little.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Yeah, ready.
So I think the first and most important step is to make sure that individuals understand the difference between equity and equality.
Exactly.
Right? I think there's often a misconception that equity and equality are the same thing. There's actually a graphic or a photo. If you Google equity versus equality, you'll see a photo, and there's 3 individuals standing at a baseball park. And it says equality is each of those individuals, one is short, one is medium-sized, one is tall. They're all given the same size box to look over the fence to watch the baseball game, right? The short person, even on the box, can't see over the fence. The medium-sized person is barely over the fence, and then the tall person doesn't even need the box because they can see over the fence without the box. Equity is giving the shorter individual 2 boxes so that they can see over the fence. The medium-sized person also gets a larger box, and then the tall person doesn't need the box. So understanding the importance between the difference between equity and equality is the first step to ensuring equity in responding to the digital divide. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Excellent. I saw that, and I had to smile myself when you mentioned it, and someone sent it to me on Facebook. One of the things that I applaud the Department of Education for during the pandemic is that they gave electronic devices to all of the students in the district. Because of the funding that was available, they were able to do that. They didn't ask you your socioeconomic background, can you afford it or not. They gave each person a Chromebook. Now, when it came to the MiFis, that's when it became an issue, because folks who needed a MiFi, there were MiFi available for them. Folks who didn't need a MiFi because they could afford and they had internet connectivity in their homes, they were trying to say, well, hold up, why I can't get a MiFi also? So that was one of the things that the district had a hard time getting across to everyone. This is based on a need. So there you go with the equality versus equity. All right.
Yeah, so there was a time in our public housing, all of the community centers had robust computer labs. You might remember there was a grant, I think it was via NGN, and they had put in computer labs and internet, and they were offering classes. Does anyone remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and what happened?
Nobody really, I don't know how to access the internet. If I don't know how to access the internet, then how am I going to be able to be part of that?
Staffing. They did not have staffing. They were trying to rely on volunteers to staff the community centers. So that equipment ended up sitting, becoming obsolete, not being used. Community centers were closed and locked. I used to go out and teach in the community center and teach computer classes way back in the day. So we need to reinvest. We need to reestablish the public housing, community center-based computer labs. Have that access be available, staffed by individuals who are being paid, by individuals who are living and working in the community themselves. That really needs to be reestablished. Yes.
Yeah.
So two things that have currently already happened in terms of providing equity to territory is one, Governor Bryan has made it possible to create more broadband opportunities here.
Yes.
One of the things that we found both locally and nationally is if you don't have access to a hotspot or a way to access the internet, period, it doesn't matter. So that's the first thing that's happened. Second, we know, of course, that now Lieutenant Governor and then Senator Roach made it possible that most people who are living in the territory can have access to at least an undergraduate education for free. So those are two ways that currently people have access to raise that extra box that they need. My experience in the past as being a public defender, most people needed someone to believe in them. The people who had 3 generations of college graduates, that they had lots of people in their community that looked like them, that were doing things that they expected great people to do, were okay. But the people who had never had a parent who had ever gone to work, the person who had never had a sibling that held a job that paid more than minimum wage, they had a hard time believing that they could even do that. So to me, sometimes equity is not so much always about the access to the tool, but it's access to the person who's going to be the caseworker, who's going to work with you, to invest in you personally. Because all of us, I'm sure, had somebody who took us aside, took us under the wing and said, you are important, you are valuable, I will invest in you. And that's something that is, I think, is one of the ways that we can level the playing field.
I love that response. And going right back to the topic of equity and inequity, I think that as we've watched our Virgin Islands evolve, being a culturally diverse community, oftentimes people that come from the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Haiti, the level of equity sometimes is just not there from our delivery of service. And if we're really talking about being serious in terms of impacting, the Virgin Islands as it relates to upskilling and making all these great changes, then we cannot overlook the importance and the relevance of culture. Okay? As we deliver services, and please, anyone jump in, the element of culture is so relevant and personal. We shared earlier, I've never, when I moved here from New York City and I used to go to Pueblo Supermarket, I learned this. right? I used to be like, what? Oh, and then the neck roll too. And for me, it was different because the way that in my culture we kind of viewed that was almost a form of disrespect. But, it was totally a different adjustment. How is it that we collaboratively, whether it's through the Department of Labor with Equa Solution, the Ralph Whitley Skills Center, the Department of Labor, and UVI-CEL, be able to collaboratively impact the lives of our culturally diverse population as it relates to preparing people for the next years to come? Uh-huh.
I'll start. I think that having dialogue across cultures is important. So this time, it's the people who are from the Dominican Republic, people who are from Haiti and other places. In yesteryear, the people from the Lesser Antilles.
Yes.
If you're from St. Kitts and Antigua and Dominica, it was that population that had a different stigma attached to it. But right.
Yes.
So as people integrate into communities, as communities have dialogues across, as you have people in the workplaces who are diverse backgrounds, and people are treated with respect, I think that's one of the first ways that you can go across culture, and to acknowledge it. Sometimes we just pretend like it's not happening, and this further exacerbates the problem. And so we have to acknowledge it, and then change the culture that we have in organizations, and have everybody to the table. So, for example, one of the things we're doing in the Department of Labor, especially in the management level, is one of two things. One, we're creating a system where we customer-centric, integrity, openness, and accountability as our new set of values that we really take to heart. But that means that I need to talk to the person who may be from Haiti and explain to them also, how does that impact you? What does that mean in your culture? And to have a conversation, right? What our new vision is to protect, improve, and employ every Virgin Islander. That's our new mission at the Virgin Islands Department of Labor. And that means that everybody has a piece of the pie. From Haiti, Dominica, Puerto Rico, wherever you are, we want you to have a piece of the pie too. So that's something that we have taken to heart, and that's how I think that we can, fix the culture problem.
Me gusta, me gusta.
As we talk about culture, you made me smile when you talk about the Kittians and the Antiguans, because I was in junior high and high school, and then the famous thing was Garrett, and but now that's gone. Those Garretts are the ones who are running the show now,
Yeah.
So, and we used to quick to say, I born here, and so now what does born here mean? And so what I think is we need to work culturally that irregardless of where you're from, you need to be treated with respect and dignity. And if we just have that as one of our core beliefs, you can be a Martian and come to the island as long as you come in peace.
Correct. Agreed.
Treat with respect. Treat with dignity, the way we would like to be treated. And that's how I evolved to be the person that I am. I treat people, every single person, the way I would like to be treated. And I try to teach and model not only for the staff, but for the students. And we have those issues. I'm not going to pretend that we don't have those issues. There's issues that exist sometimes at the skill center. If you come in and you have a difficult time, we still embrace you.
Yes.
And the beautiful part is we have staff that speaks French Creole, and I speak Spanglish as a Crucian born. And so we try our best, and then we triage. We get them to someone who could assist them further. But if we just take it back to the bare necessity, respect and dignity, and that whole Stroops thing, I don't know how it became such a big thing, because growing up in this culture, it meant kiss my behind.
Yes. Yes.
And the elders, you couldn't even think about doing it, because if you just pucker your lips, you could get a backhand. They could be way over there. You want to know how the backhand got over here. All you did was pucker your lips, and they will don't even think about it. So I don't know how we got from there to here. But again, that's what we have to embrace when we embrace change.
Exactly.
Because when we get a cold drink and all different kinds of culture, then we start losing some of that. And you can't go hit nobody's child across the mouth now.
No,
Going to
no,
jail.
no. Thank you, great thoughts. Yes,
Yeah,
Dr. McGrath.
Thank you. So I'm going to echo what everyone has said. It's absolutely about respect.
Yeah.
So just to get you a sense of some of the work that we do with the Bureau of Corrections, I'm going to go back to that example, and I do have my colleague, AG, who's here. He has been attending our student intake meetings with us. We only get 10 minutes with each of the individuals who are incarcerated to sit down with them to get a sense of their educational background, their workforce aspirations, where their case is at that moment in time. And across, it's all cultures that we see, and I only have 10 minutes. I have 10 minutes to show that respect and then also build trust. Because once I build that trust, then individuals start to open up and start to share with us, here's what happened, here's why I left school, here's how I ended up in this situation, but I was doing this or I was doing that. And it can help them just to feel comfortable, to be able to share once you have that level of respect.
Thank you
So
so much, panelists. I mean, you're really resonating to my spirit. And with that being said, we realize the emphasis, again, and we have to reiterate, the emphasis of technology. Roughly half of the U.S. jobs will be potentially affected by what we call automation in the near future. What are the skills that we need to build now to remain employable over the next decade? What are the skills? I mean, everything is changing. I heard that NASA launched off their first, what do you call it? Similar to like the air scooters that we used to see at the Jetsons. Those new electrical cars. Well, electrical cars now flying. So how do we compete with that? What are some of the necessary skills that we're going to be needing to be able to thrive in the workforce?
Well, I actually saw a documentary recently on Vice that talked about how the food industry has been impacted by automation.
Yes.
And how now you have machines that can flip burgers and replacing some of the physical jobs, or chefs. When, as an attorney, there's certain products that you'd go to a big book and you'd open it up and you'd do certain things to be able to. Now you can press a button and have that same thing happen. So being able to analyze things, being able to counsel people, being able to be creative. So it's not going to necessarily be the flip of that burger, but it's going to be that how you make a burger better. How do you make it different? How do you change some ingredient that makes it a little more unique? So it's not going to be the rote skills. I mean, most of us, knew someone who worked in a refinery at some point. So the person who is going to turn the lever doesn't have the same job, but they may have another role. So again, if we upskill and we reskill that person, we can not necessarily have one skill that's going to take them for 10 years, but just to be flexible. As Dr. McGrath said, something that's going to make sure that you stay a little bit ahead of the technology, or that you work with the technology. They gave an example that a computer may be able to see a dog versus a cat fine, but a muffin with a dog that has the same kind of little eyes, it might be a little more hard, even for a human, hard for a machine. So there's certain things that are machine things, like a lot of us grow up with Britannicas. Nobody uses Britannicas anymore.
Yes.
We use Google.
We have
right?
Google.
We have Google. But it didn't replace the communication
Right.
that you would have. Google can't have a discussion the way we're having a discussion right now.
Correct.
Right. So there's certain things that automation is only going to add. We can't be afraid of the technology, right? We have to just embrace it, and we have to teach our people as a part of the upskilling to embrace the technology so they can be able to move on.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Embracing is important. Thank you.
I think, the governor this morning, he talked about how TikTok is the devil, right? And I think as technology continues to evolve, one thing that we need to make sure that we prioritize is the ability to learn from technology,
Yes.
right? So we wake up in the morning, a lot of us, our alarm clock is our phone. A lot of us, the first thing we grab when we wake up in the morning is our phone.
Yeah.
What are we doing when we're looking at the phone? And I think the iPhone does a good job of telling you how you spent your week on your iPhone.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. That data. Data.
There are so many tools that you can benefit from on the iPhone. YouTube on the
Yes.
iPhone, LinkedIn Learning, TikTok has educational TikToks, right? So if one can familiarize learning and get comfortable with learning and being motivated by Instagram pages,
Yes.
it can change the trajectory. If you make one slight change in your approach daily, if you continue that and become consistent and disciplined in that change, you will evolve and you will grow. So the ability to be mindful of how you're using technology now and getting comfortable with the way you're using technology to learn, I think that will help any individual as technology continues to evolve.
Yeah, agreed.
She looked at me like, oh, yeah. All I have is this. If we're going to do it, we have to do it deliberately. We have to start from in the younger grades. Again, I have to say in our district, I see a lot of technology in our district. We don't have a want for technology.
Okay.
What I think we need to do better is, number one, have instructors who know the technology and be able to work with the students and encouraging them to surpass where I am with the technology.
Yes.
Turn it into a culture, I always say. If you want something to stick, turn it into a culture. How do you turn it into a culture? You have to be repetitive, and you must be, the word just deliberate about it. You can't assume that because they can get on TikTok, because they can navigate social media, that they have those skills and the hunger for the skills that they're going to need in the next 10 years to be the leaders of this territory.
Excellent response. Thank you so much, Educator Francis.
Yeah, so I would say the robots are coming, for
Yes.
sure. Well, have you seen the new AI artwork that's out
Yes,
now?
yes, yes.
You put in a couple of search terms, and the AI-generated art will create amazing artwork. If you have not seen it, check it out. The traditional artists, they're nervous because the art is good. It's creepily good. Like, you think about that picture of the girl with the pearl earring. They've even figured out ways for the art to like expand out the picture. Yeah. So like, from a micro view of just the girl, to like, what would the rest of her room look like in that same style by that artist? It is incredible. So the technology is coming. Like A.C. Christian Hendrickson said, embrace the technology. Don't be afraid of the technology. And also what Governor Bryan said this morning about staying marketable, knowing your brand. If the robots are coming, what can you still offer? What can you still do that is worth something in the market? So stay
It's
relevant.
also that, to me, I think one of the most important elements is that human touch. Robots or artificial intelligence would never have what we call that human factor, and that sets us apart. So let's hold on to that and make sure that that's passed on to the next generation, if we may. So as we continue now to look at and winding down on our questioning, I wanted to ask the team of panelists right here, what are some of the approaches that people might use to reskilling and upskilling that you found to be useful? What are some of the approaches that you found them to be useful when individuals come to you at your various, job sites or in your various roles, that you realize, this is something that works?
Goals. You start with setting your goal. Once you set your goal, you can do research and see what I need to do to attain my goals. And then once you see what you need to do, then you need to start applying that. And then when you get through applying that, you need to utilize it. And when you get through utilizing it, do some metacognitive skills and see how am I doing with my goals that I've set. So we always say, what's your goal? Because I can fill your head with 1,000,001 things. But what do you want? And once you say, what do you want? And they said, this is what I want to do, then how are you going to get it done?
Yes.
And then we work on a plan to get it done. So then we list each item. If you need, and again, soft skills is one of the things that robots can be as sweet as they can, but if we don't practice our soft skills and teach it, it's going to be a sad case scenario because we're going to continue to be grumpy people, and then we're going to grow up and be grumpy old people, and nobody's going to want to be around us. And so I will always double back and say, whatever you are adding to your reskilling, upskilling, make sure those skills. And I heard everything we talked about here sitting today, when you look at what we're hitting, leadership skills, soft skills, integrity, soft skills, punctuality, soft skills. So why we do soft skills is because that's what the employer is saying to us. We can help them with the hard skills. We don't have a problem, but we cannot help them with the soft skills. And so that's what we push. That's our agenda. You're going to get the job because you have the hard skills. You're going to keep the job because you have the soft skills. And so to that end.
So I have 3: mentorship,
Oh, yeah.
partnership, and apprenticeship.
Absolutely.
So sometimes if you don't necessarily know which area you want to, having a mentor, and necessarily always a very stoic mentor in the way that we think of. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, hey, Rudy, you do X, Y, Z. I would like to learn about X, Y, Z. Can we
Right.
have a 30-minute conversation? Can I take you to lunch? It can be something as simple as that, and that you work with them. It could be going to LinkedIn and finding somebody who's in your field and asking them for a 10-minute conversation. Partnership. There's a lot of opportunities. All the people who are on this panel have partners that they
Yes.
work with. That
Yes.
if we don't necessarily do that, somebody else does. So working together with the talent that we have around us. And then apprenticeship. We have a registered apprenticeship program at the Department of Labor. We have a lot of, if there's something that you can think of, there's an apprenticeship that matches it. And we found that if you get into a registered apprenticeship, the employer is benefited because they have a much more well-trained staff member, and then the employee is benefited because you have a job day one. So you have a job, the bosses are already invested in you by giving you this opportunity, and you know you're going to have good training at the end. So it's a win-win for everybody. So those would be my 3.
All right.
I think I just have to say, it's okay to ask for help. And Nisha mentioned the Department of Labor, the American Job Center. We're co-located.
Yes.
We partner, and we are here to help you. So if you're watching, I strongly encourage you, if you haven't gotten the message from us yet, you should definitely visit the American Job Center and request some services from the Department of Labor, from the American Job Center. We're here to help you. And that's the key to reskilling and upskilling. It doesn't have to be done by yourself. You can use your resources, and there are plenty of resources available to you. Talking to the camera.
And Principal Francis, you described the process perfectly, starting with the goals. And in addition to that, you want to make sure that, from the employer's perspective, that the upskilling that is being selected is a true business need. That you're making sure it's not just nice to have, I'm not just giving you this carrot to make you feel good at work, but it's an actual business need. Assessments are wonderful tools. AG and I, we meet with people who, I don't know what I want to do. I've been doing construction, but what do you really want to do? I don't know. So there's tons of assessments out there. Department of Labor, you have the 16 career cluster assessment, different assessments you can take to find out what am I naturally good at? What do I really like to do? Is it what I'm doing now? Could it be something else? And then finding those upskilling opportunities that really fit your true passion, your true nature of what you're actually good at.
All right. And as we wrap up, any final thoughts in reference to reskilling and upskilling? Final thoughts? Do, 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 do.
Don't procrastinate.
Ah.
Alrighty? Jump on it. That thing that's in your head or in your soul, in your spirit, that's nudging you that, you know something, I need to do this, I should do this. Don't put it off. You have a whole panel here. Either one of us, we head up institutions that will support you. All right?
Awesome.
I think my word of advice is run your race, all right? As someone that's run a marathon before, oftentimes we focus so heavily on the people ahead of us, and we get frustrated because there are people ahead of us. But we don't acknowledge that there are also people behind us that are looking at us, frustrated at where we are, right? We're all running a different race. We all have different challenges. We all have different lives and lifestyles. But you have to be aware of your race. You have to be aware of the people around you that are cheering you on. Run at your own pace and focus on what your definition of success is. As Principal Francis mentioned, we don't want parents putting their definition of success on their child. You have to determine what your definition of success is so that you can run in that direction. But it all starts with running your race and focusing on where you want to go.
Sure, so I would just say upskilling, that's just normal, everyday world of work. So things are always going to be changing. You're going to have to stay current in your field. You're going to have to stay up to date. You got to watch the news. You got to stay connected. You have to stay in touch. That's just going to be essential. You talked about 40 plus years in education and all those things and twists and turns, and you had to stay at the forefront in order to stay at the, successful in your field. We just have to do it. We can't be complacent. All right, thank you.
And I would say finally a couple things. One, read as many books as you can. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's Audible. I don't care if it's a library book. I don't care if you're reading a YouTube snip of it. Read as many books as you can. And the second thing, as Rudy mentioned, please come visit us at the Department of Labor. We are here to serve you. That is why we exist. Please access the resources at the different providers who are on the ground. This is the passion. This is why we do what we do. We really do want to meet you and to meet you where you are to be able to get you to that next level. Thank you so much.
And I'd like to take the opportunity right now to just thank this wealth of information, this team of experts that I've been so fortunate to be able to be part of and get to know during this rich discussion. So please give them a round of applause. I think the information that was shared here today is so insightful as we continue to move the Virgin Islands forward and the people of the Virgin Islands, because we are all here and we need to make sure that we partake in this great endeavor of upskilling Virgin Islanders now and into the future. I wish you all the best of luck. And if there are any questions that maybe the audience might have for the panelists, going once, going twice, they just want to, yes, we have one, yes.
I think you guys are really a wealth of information. And my question is, maybe we should have maybe the Board of Education here, because I think a lot of the stuff needs to start in schools, not after they come out of schools that we're trying to create and upskill them. It should start with a curriculum in school. All the soft skills that you guys talk about, which are so essential, they're not taught in school. As an employer, we have to teach them that stuff, and that's unfortunate. I think it should be all part of the school curriculum to develop those skills that are necessary that we have identified here today as part of the curriculum, so that we have well-rounded individuals when they do come out of school.
That is really a great comment, and we are in agreement. Definitely, we need to go back and revisit. But we do implement a lot of life skills within our Department of Education's curriculum. I know.
There's a lot of that going on, and as you said that, I reflect back to my earlier days as an educator. It was the parents' responsibility, and then they came to school, and the teachers reinforced it. Now, we have to teach it and get the parents to reinforce it. That's the paradigm shift. And so we're between a rock and a hard place, because a lot of times if we don't catch the parents through one of the groups that we have, because we have Parents University, where the parents come in for meetings and they get different professional development in different areas, and that's one of the topics. Because a lot of the times, unfortunately, some of the times, when you see bad attitudes coming out of children, that's the culture in the home. And so that's what they have learned as communication. I mean, it's not a popular thing to say, but it's a truth. And so what we need to do, and I think the department is doing a good job at it, even though they're now, not even though, they're looking at it now from a different perspective, where they're doing a lot of social, emotional training. Because of the breakdown of the family, we need more social emotional training, because our students are coming to us wounded and they can't settle down and learn some of the basics. All right?
Thank you. Yes, David.
Principal Francis, you hit it right on point, but I think it starts before the school levels. I think it starts with parenting skills. when the young kids are having children, they don't have that support at home, and developing a parenting skill curriculum that teaches, that the morals, the teaching, the whole skill set on what it is to be a parent and what it is to be of creating a support system for that child.
Great. I see another question.
This is not really a question. I just want to reinforce the point. No, I totally agree, right? Education starts at home, right? And if it's not happening at home, then it's on the community. We put a little bit too much on the Department of Education, right? That's not for them to be doing that. That's not what they're trained to do. They don't teach you that when you go to school to become a teacher. That's something the community needs to pick up on. That's all I want to say. Definitely agree, bro. Definitely agree.
And to that point, I think, Principal Francis, you mentioned it in the beginning. There was a time, and we always talk about how the community raises the child. There was a time, and I don't believe we can't get back to it, that if I saw your child doing something incorrect, I would correct your child, and then while you got home, your mother was going to correct you again. So I think the difference is that we need to reinforce what we have as a standard of decorum in the community. So if I think that you are not doing it, whether it's on your job or at the school or wherever, there was a time, but if you're a parent, if you get disciplined in the school, you weren't going to run back to your parents, and your parents were going to come back to fight the teacher. That was not the way it was done. So we have to rethink what we find acceptable and hold each other accountable to say, no, actually your child was misbehaving. That's why they got the correction. So I think it's on us too to bring us all up together, and then we can decide how we want the Virgin Islands to be. It's on us. We can do it.
So I think it's a real complex problem, okay, and there's not really one solution. Right. But just as we're talking about upskilling, right, the same thing applies here, and now we have a broken society. Now we have to change the way we do business in order to deal with the breakdown that we currently have.
So, and I would say, so there's a quote that I like to use. It says, tact is the art of making a point without making an enemy, right? And when it comes to education, Principal Francis mentioned.
We're taking notes.
Principal Francis talked about how we're steering the children when they're at school, and it's the parents' responsibility to steer the children when they're at home. But we're finding in today's society sometimes where the schools are being asked not only to steer the children but also to steer the parents, and it's a challenge. But I think from the school's perspective, it is where tact is required, right? Because sometimes when communicating with the parents, we have to tactfully communicate to them that their child needs additional steering, and we are supposed to collaborate with them and partner with them to help them to grow so that that child makes the most out of their educational experience. So it's a challenge. It's something that we all have to, as all community partners, we have to collectively work together for us to improve that. But it's a responsibility I think everyone in this room is willing to take on.
All right.
And I would say quickly, I think it's one of the things a lot of parents noticed in the pandemic. Some of those behaviors that the teachers were talking about before.
Oh, yes. All
They
right.
said, wait a minute, my child does that. So there were certain silver linings.
All right. Well, thank you again, panel, for having this rich discussion. I certainly walk away out of here learning so much in terms of the information shared. When we started this Workforce Summit, we started with a great idea. The theme was creativity and innovation in the U.S. Virgin Islands workforce and looking ahead. We drilled down even further and touched bases on training and upscaling Virgin Islanders now into the future. But I think that we can all agree that we gained so much more from it. And I thank the panelists who shared their wealth of information. I thank the viewing audience for being part of this, and certainly the governor and all of the persons that were involved in this great, great, great initiative. So thank you, and thank you, and thank you for allowing us to share this wealth of information. And so, as you know, the Department of Labor, EQUIS. We also have the Department of Labor, and then we have the Ralph O. Whitley Skills Center, and certainly our alma mater, UVISL, along with Dr. McGrath, that has plenty of opportunities to engage and enhance the skills of the people of the Virgin Islands and abroad. Thank you so very much for tuning in.
Thank you. And you know what? We're all partners. We're all partners because we touch the same lives each time.
Absolutely.
So we continue to do the good work together.
Thank you so much. God bless.